Um, so I always laugh at this trick, like the idea that we mark um that this speaking about time and the fact that there are all different ways to mark time, and apparently and there's all different ways to mark the passage of time. So in like physics, they now often define time as the thing that clocks measure, right? So in other words, we have no idea what it is, but something does something, and something has to be repetitive, right? And so one of the things that measures time is how long it takes for the earth to get around the sun. And then we decide to celebrate that as an important day. But so in a way, that's a form of a clock, right? The regularity of the orbit, right, happens in a certain amount of time every year, quote. And so it's a measurement, right? So what's interesting also is like sometimes people say, well, hold this pose for this many breaths and that many breaths, right? That's a form of a clock, except that clock isn't a great clock because the length of your breath changes, and there are all certain things. And yet, have you noticed that we're all kind of in a rush all the time to learn stuff as yoga students, and we don't think about time as part of the teacher, right? And so, but we're in a rush. I want to know this. I want to get better at that, and I want to go to the next screen. It's like, well, wait. Actually, the time between. I don't know, Bethany, do you have any like thing that happened over this last year that in this last period of time, because we have a marker now, because a clock happened with the Earth going around the sun that like stuck out to you as a really cool thing that happened?
Oh, I mean, so many things. I guess,
Pick a little one.
oh, I don't know. I'm thinking of time in the future, kind of.
So then pick one for this following year. See, it's interesting. Look, minds kind of worry about time in the future, and we get stuck about time in the past. So think about one about the future.
Well,
That
it's
that's
just
great.
like my birthday is sort of the beginning of my birthday season for my kids. So between now and May, all my kids they turn over a year too, and like it's a really reflective time for me, and it's just always like amazing to sort of see them both in the past year and think to the future year. So like right now, I'm in a very like
Transitional time when you start the
yeah. So I
because
I like to think about them and how they changed and how our family has sort of
yeah.
moved through.
But so like reflecting on time, kind of you have to sit there in the pause, right? So everyone like reflect for a second and feel. I don't mean like think, feel about this last year of your yoga practice. We did this at Kiss My Asana. No, at Team Adaptables, pardon me. And it's like it's hard to conjure time, right? Can you make it a sensation rather than a thought? Because in a second, we're going to center. And if it goes on too long, part of your mind's going to get impatient. And think about the passage of time as like a river that's part of your pose. So in order to feel the feeling of time passing, feel your feet, your sitting bones. Have the boundary of your body as time is passing. Your appreciation of the sensation lips together, teeth slightly apart, time can kind of slow down when your mind slows down or the way it feels. Like there's like a treasure trove of time. We're not even sure time can exist without objects and different speeds. That's part of what relativity is about. But we can sit here and be embodied. Watch the breath into each nostril. Feel the expansion of each lung, the rib cage. Balance the head over the neck. Get softer with the space around you as time passes. Stay sturdy in your body and your spine in the space as time passes. The operations of your body that keep you alive mark time. You're a clock. Time is what clocks measure. Good. And lift your sternum, drop your chin. Bring a different quality of attention. Let the space between the sitting bones come up in emptiness up to the center of your chest. Let the breath expand the emptiness into the rib cage. Be a humble receiver with your chin dropped. Be in the space around you. Have your own boundary. Be a clock. Chin up. Open your eyes. Right? It's a thing to work with in a yoga practice, time, right? Hands into prayer again. Right? Now you add different sensations. Bones together, skin opening. Remember, last week we did a class on bones, we did a class on skin, we did a class on breath. Our our human minds are so limited, right? Good. And then release, the idea and then release, there's what, a 13.8 billion years that have happened. the thing that you got to where you weren't like you were being the one of the singular measures instead of all the organized in your day, that energy has been happening for an amount of time that literally your mind can't fathom, right? Every single moment's been like that the entire time while everything else has been happening at different rates, right? It's like, huh, dang. There's a line that I kept mishearing in, I think I talked about this the other day in the song Warehouse by Dave Matthews, where I always thought it said eternity resets back to the middle. It's not the line, it says something else, right? But think about it, it's such an absurd line. Like eternity, how it doesn't have a middle, so it always is reset back to the middle. So you get to start new every single day, right? Right? It's dog pose. Put your hands on the table on your thighs, right? You're going to start adding different sensations to what was already passing, right? One of the hardest things in a yoga pose is to learn to stabilize your mind, to let time pass equally, right? This is part of what balancing poses are for. You learn to stabilize the mind even though the body's not balanced or struggling for balance. So even in how my hands are on the table, and of course, certain muscles are firing more than certain others, and pressing down through the index finger, I'm lifting the upper arm in and up towards the ceiling. I'm dropping my shoulder blades. I'm broadening across the collarbone. I'm broadening across the sacrum. I'm doing all the things I tell you all the time because you're trying to be a seamless clock. You're not trying to be a super loud clicking talk. And you're trying not to vibrate too much as you're a clock. You're trying to bring smoothness to the passage of time. You're trying to let the fact that nothing changes in how time passes. You're trying to be consistent with that in your yoga pose. So use the fact that, and your mind gets bored in time, right? It's like looking for something to happen. And your yoga poses transform when you get better at not doing that. And your breath is another form of a clock. Breath in, breath out. So the palms of mine are on the table. I'm trying to at the same time feel all the things in my body. And when it's just on this next couple of times, I'm going to try to make sure the inhalation and the exhalation, of course, it's impossible for me because I'm talking, to be more equal. I'm going to bring more of me into sync, into balance as time is passing. And of course, there's variation, right? Time goes slower when you're heavier, right? You know, when you're hunkered in and you're just waiting for time to pass. So I'm lifting up a little bit, doing the thing we always do to get the spine a little bit more in traction. I really tweaked my shoulder last night, so it's like movement's rough on me today. Right, so I'm lifting up. I'm getting lighter because time feels different when I'm not like compressed. What do we do to time when we clench our jaw? Right? What kind of clock are we when we're holding against time? Right? With a clenched jaw. When I'm engaged and in my life, right? Time seems to flow differently. I don't notice it as much, which is a gain and a loss, right? Take your legs apart, get more open again, because we're changing the way our clock ticks, right? So going back and forth and moving around and getting the base of my spine more open, right? And we should always be grateful. Like, I like doing some of the similar things in all my yoga poses in my yoga practice. And I have us do similar movements, at least in the beginning, as a form of a clock, as a way to check in, right? So I can measure a little bit about what it feels like today relative to what it feels like yesterday and the day before, right? What's the, right? Because in order for me to like use like the fact that it's Goblin's the Glee's birthday, like what's the measure? Well, you're the measure, right? You're a measure, legs back together, right? So we're gonna twist a little bit, right? So I'm gonna go forward onto one, and we're just trying to wake things up. So, and be lighter. So maybe time feels different, right? Right. So I'm twisting like this. I'm opening up my spine, right? And I'm making sure if I'm too in a rush, if I'm too in the future about how far I can twist here, I'll leave my legs more, right? So how do you, in the famous words of Ram Dass, be here now? It's got a book like that. How do I be here now as I'm going this way to where I think I need to accomplish, right? And it doesn't mean I shouldn't look to the future, like Bethany's look into this coming year and the sling of birthdays and changes in her family, right? There's a way to have this time and the time in your body. And you can practice things like this in your yoga pose, right? You can be in different versions of time and then come back to center, especially when I teach in person and people would know what pose I was teaching, right? There'd always be the students that would be going into the pose before I gave the instructions, right? Because they were in a certain way of being in time, right? And they're like letting their anticipation like not listen to the instructions, right? Because maybe they thought they knew the instructions. Maybe they thought I was going to teach the pose the same way. Maybe they're wrong, right? If eternity is always setting back to the middle, what's the rush? Doesn't mean you can't look to the future, but you can try to be in simultaneous places. Lean forward, twist the other way. Because as soon as my eyes go this way, I'm going to go forward in time more, right? But notice your spine doesn't go forward and backward in time, right? It stays, right? So your body's showing you one version of time as your mind's trying to do the pose. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Make sure that you're lifting, hitting your sitting bone downs, making space in your spine, having your one sense of what the pose is, following where your eyes go, but making sure you're not stealing from the rest of the pose. Right? Like you're letting your body stay the center in the time, in the present more as you're turning and trying to work to what you think you're supposed to do. Good. And then come on back to center. So the thing that gets kind of crazy is that you get the fact that there was the time where your body, the time frame that your body stays in the present, the time frame that you're looking to the future, all those things were already happening, right? They were already possibilities, right? So you don't have to create anything to be in multiple planes of time. You just have to figure out. So you're gonna bump over the back of your chair, right? Right. So you're gonna again try to allow, and you can't be in all the times at once, right? But like I'm gonna try to keep as I go up and over the back of my chair and feel the sunlight and feel the opening. I'm gonna make sure I stay more connected to my legs and the earth as I open my chest, as I tumble backwards over the back of my chair. right? I'm gonna come forward. And I'm gonna rise in upward facing dog. And I'm gonna like try to be in multiple places as I know where I'm going, as I know what I'm gonna do. I want to keep the place where I was connected to the place where I'm going. Right? Your mind and the future tend to pop out of your eyeballs. Right? So let's just take for a second and think of and ground the frontal cortex. So, you know, but the heel of your hand on the bridge of your nose. This calls calming the brain. Lay down the fingers on the over to the about the hairline, right? And just let there be a calming thing. I think that we think, when your mind's being really agitated, this is a good thing to do. So you kind of are gently pulling the skin on the forehead, it's very gently down towards the bridge of the nose, right? And there's a different sensation of time when things are quiet. This connection, this clock is in every pose. It's how Shavasana is in every pose. Good. And then release and come on up. But we're going to get back to activity here pretty soon, right? We're going to move around. But have you ever noticed how um in Shavasana, when you're first doing Shavasana, it can feel like it goes really slow, like you're trying to get there and your mind won't go there. And all of a sudden, if you really get there, it goes pretty fast because maybe you fell asleep. Isn't it kind of weird that you wake up and often you don't know how long you slept at all? That suddenly your mind's knowledge of time isn't really helping. You don't really have a clock, right? Back to your hand on the forehead. When you do something like this, your clocks, the ones you're used to, they ain't so good, right? So your mind resists and you get kind of bored and go, when we're gonna get out of this? I don't want to go too far this direction. I want ways to measure. But when Iyengar says Shavasana is in every pose, biggest Iyengar says that, he's also saying something about time. And then take your forehead out of your hand. Now you're kind of like in this quiet mode and it's supposed to be restorative, but start rocking around. But bring the quiet sense into the rock. Don't go into the movement without bringing this stuff with, right? So, like, wait, I'm going to keep that sensation and I'm going to make it a dance partner, right? I'm not going to try to step on its toes. I'm going to make it a dance partner. It's coming with me, right? It's like, what? Going back over my chair, trying to bring slow time and moving time into the same pose, right? Remember, our part of our transcendence is that we can feel and mark different planes of time. It's weird. It's effing fantastic. Right. And there's certain things that you have to slow down to, like getting back to some of the classes, like to make the space to feel like the skin in a pose, right? That's what we were talking about last 2 weeks ago, right? You actually kind of have to slow down your sense of time, right? To actually let that be part of it. So on this next back bend, as we're grounding down to the feet and being in the more grounded part, the more like, and you're gonna open the chest. Or if you're taking your head back, which you don't have to, I want you on the next back bend to try to be really aware of the skin opening from the center of the chest up through the neck. But then I also want you to be aware of the skin not collapsing on the back of your neck. Okay. Now, in order to be aware like that, you're going to have to be in multiple places at once, multiple set planes of time, because the skin is not feeling like the chest opening. Okay. So you're going to ground, you're going to get that kind of sturdy sense of time, right? You're going to keep that with you. Remember, there's the frontal cortex part. When you ground the frontal cortex, that's in every pose. Right? Time goes slower there. So you're going to go up, over, and then try to not be in such a rush, but to try to feel more using the expansive time to be let in the skin. So right here, I'm going to try to open the skin without shortening the skin on the back of my neck. Open, now broaden the skin on the front of the chest, under the collarbone. Right? And then come back. What ends up happening is that if I move slower, I feel like I can keep the slow time with me, right? But now I want you to do it a little bit faster, but keep the slow time with you, right? You can do it. That's how advanced practitioners do wild stuff. They keep different times with them, right? They move one part faster than other times, and they're in different places. Are they thinking about this? No, they learn it through repetition, right? Okay, so now, so now we're gonna go back, right? And you're we're gonna move faster, but you want to keep the grounded part of your pose. So come on the front of your sit bones, where time kind of is more like the feeling of the frontal hand on the forehead, right? Keep that time with you the whole time where you move and try to be, so your mind's gonna get overwhelmed here because it's not gonna be able to do it all in the same amount of time. You don't want to necessarily frantically move, but we're going to move at a higher speed. But I want you to keep the slow time with you that allows you to feel your skin, right? Okay, so back, do it back, over, up, right? And now I've got it in me once. I'm going to do it again a little faster and try to keep it all with me, right? Back, over, up, right? See, the mind has to break the time apart. That's what instructions do for you, right? Up, over, back. That's the gift of instructions, and the curse of instructions is it breaks the time apart. So I'm going to give you instructions again, and your mind will be able to take comfort in the time because the instructions are like making the time feel linear, right? Which is great. So put your hands on your thighs, ground your sitting bone, come on the front edge like you're alert, make your spine alert, right? So then start to come back, hit the back of your ear, push out on your femur bones away from you. Feel space in the front of your hips. Go up, over. Broaden across the collarbones while spreading between the shoulder blades. Right? Start taking the head back, feeling the front of the neck, the skin on the front of the neck and back of the neck. So what I do with the instructions is I get your mind more comfortable because it's got an order. because you've got things to do as time is passing. The great thing about repetition is the mind doesn't have to be as involved, so it doesn't have to chop up time as much. So hopefully you've done the backbends enough times, right? So you can just do a couple and observe all the things that are happening. So remember, you got a peer observer in here. The peer observer isn't as linear. Okay, try it. What is he talking about? There's a point, right, where the mind needs not to be part of the process. Except you still have to have a whole bunch of clocks. Try it again. I'm about to ask you your response. And if I'm on drugs again, could be on drugs again. I don't know. Try it again. The person I like to throw under the bus first, right, to give response as I'm waiting for her to come out of her pose. I think we know who this person I like to throw under the bus first. Angelique. What, if anything, are you getting out of this class?
Um, I, that was a really lovely way to get into to move through the back bend. Well, the moving through time into like as a way to move into poses and move through like even with the back bend, it was just like kind of mind bending,
Well,
fun.
that's part of the hope, right?
Yeah, like I mean, it was interesting because I know that when I do back bends, like of course I think about like relax your shoulders, open your chest, try not to. But then there's always like a sticky point. There's always points where I'm like I come out and I'm like, okay, that was my back bend. But there was something about these ones where it was like it felt really effortless. Like they felt really smooth and
So say something more. This is a really interesting description word you used, which got me very interested. And this is from a relatively long-standing, very long-standing for some of us, but relative to the fact that you could have been yoga for eternity. Um, what Anjik is saying is really an interesting thing to say from someone who's practiced a lot of yoga, right? There are sticky points, especially when you come out of a pose. Think about on your own, in your own sense, what do you think Angelique means by the sticky points? And I'm going to ask her what she means in a second. So I'm letting you collect your thoughts on what's a really effective word, because I think I know exactly what you mean. But what is it that makes a point of the pose or a place in the pose sticky, right? So think about what you could have meant with your own sense of what yoga is, right? And what poses are. So Angelique, what do you think?
well, for me, it's just places where I've gone too far, and I'm coming out, and I'm like, okay, like that. It just it's almost like a rusty part of a joint where I'm like easing myself out of it slowly. Like the back of my neck, maybe, or maybe it's like the T12 or the not T12, maybe a little bit higher in my back. Um,
So these are wonderful words. Like, so everyone, we're riding on her descriptions. So like I can totally hear into these words. Like, and that's for all of you to figure out how to hear into words, right? They're the rusty parts of the pose, right? Great word. But she said right away, where I've gone too far. Would you put into that, Angelique, that where you squeeze the pose too hard?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
When you squeeze too hard, you lose the gift of time, right? It becomes a thing you have to fight against and strain against. But I know exactly what she means. When we went, oh my goodness, wait, I got lost in how it felt, right? And all of a sudden you went, wait, I have to come out of it kind of off balance because I got myself beyond the center of gravity or whatever. I think that's kind of what you mean, right? The rusty points.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you won't have rusty points as you come out of poses, right? The truth is you do have to get back to the midline. You do have to get back to your center of gravity. All those things are true, right? Except you can get the pose more seamless. So let's go back to the reason why I picked back bends to explore time is that they're so different in quality, right? You've got the earth grounding part. You've got the all of a sudden the change, the movement. You've got the openness, and then you're turning the world upside down, kind of, right? So you're literally going through different worlds, right? So when you're coming back out of it, you're coming out of different worlds, and you will have that, oh, I went too far. And sometimes that's great to go too far because it felt so good you got too far without even knowing it, right? There are all these things going on, right? All right, so let's try it again. Thank you, Angelique. Good words, right? Good words. Frontal cortex. Finding where there's an eternity. And the eternity never leaves your poses. So I keep telling you, there's an unchanging part of every pose. Eternity never leaves any of your poses, right? Your mind just co-opts time because it wants change. It's not the mind's fault. So as you ground the frontal cortex and get the mind to quiet, let your breath have more meaning, right? Let it have more of the screen, right? And then maybe the expansion of your breath, like the way it expands your rib cage, because when you go up and over the back of your chair, there's going to be an expansion part, right? It's going to go in every direction as you tip and you use gravity. In a way, you can almost see the back bend now. And notice the lengthening that happens on your exhalation. Your spine actually lengthens and opens. That's also going to be happening in the back bend. All this is going on, and we're not even freaking doing the pose, except we are doing the pose, right? Because prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. Okay, so now we're going to go take this energy, open your eyes. Remember to come back to here. Come back to here, come back to here, because we're about to move. You don't want to do poses while you're asleep, but you want to keep the sleep with you as you're doing poses. You want to keep slow time and fast time at the same time, right? Just come on the front edge of your sitting bone. First, be dull, because we tend to dull to go to sleep, right? Make the sitting bone sharp. Come on the front edge, but keep the quiet part. Keep the length in the spine. So you're keeping that other place where time doesn't have as much measure, right? And now you're going to tip back and you're going to hit the back of the chair, push, keep movement, keeping all the times with you. Open the expansion that happens just on your inhalation is happening here. Broadening across the collarbones, broaden the space between the shoulder blades, hitting down from the inner groin to the inner knee to the inner heel. All this is happening, right? Let your front body, your back body, not just your front body, rise towards the ceiling, towards the sun. As you fall back into a playful kind of time in the back bend. Now, don't fight for the playfulness, because then the pose will get rusty when you come out of it. Stay light. Don't strive. Don't be in the future. And then slowly uncoil out of it. Come forward. Ground again. Come back to the quiet time. To the eternity time. Take a couple of breaths. Put your hand back on your forehead. Slow down time. Don't be in the future. Don't visualize. Don't just stay in the quiet time. Start to let things come online. Your breath, the expansion. Let the movement and the slow time be all the same time. Come out of it. Now let there be a slow transition, not a fast transition, back to the world where back bends happen. Usually you don't do Shavasana-like energy right next to a back bend. So you have to be careful here. You have to let and do a little bit of rhythm then, wake it up, but keep connected to the sense of slower time that happened when your hand was on your forehead, right? So you got to keep things happening together at the same time, right? Because that's actually how it happens. All the times happen at once. Eternity resets back to the middle. Okay. All right. So now you're going to go from the dull thing, like sit and slump your shoulders and let your sitting bones be dull. Slow time, that's how we sleep, right? We get held up. Crisp your sitting bones. Alert your spine, lips together, teeth slightly apart. Keep the slow time and the action. Watch your breath. Let your breath feed both versions of time in your pose. Start to tip back. Reach back and feel for the back of your chair. Don't crash into it. Use it. Go up and over the back of your chair. Keep feeling the earth through your legs. Let your legs stay with the time that's on the earth, right? Go up and over. Open the chest, fall open and expand. Don't reach for more. Let it happen. Let your instructions be part of the opening, your actions. Good, and then uncoil. Come on back. So in physics, you can imagine they've got really good clocks. Turns out the best clocks are particles, photons that bounce back and forth. They hit the earth and they bounce back up because that's a consistent amount of time. Do you know that time goes slower at the base of a building than at the top of the building? By just tiny amounts, the space around your head is going faster than the space around your feet. Time slows down near the earth. because of gravity, right? Your time's moving slower in your legs, especially in the back bend, right? So you want to keep their different relationships to time. You want to keep it in your body, right? And this isn't just me talking weird stuff. This is like clocks measuring the passage of time. It slows down closer to the earth. It opens up as we go skyward. It slows down outside of gravity, right? So rock again, right? So these things are kind of like, what the hell? I'm practicing my asana in time. Yeah, actually, you are. Yep. Every single practice you've ever had this resource in it, right? And you use them to get your brain and your mind to receive more. So we got to do a little bit of twisting here at the end, right? Take your left hand, your right hand outside your left leg. Take the other hand behind you. So we did all these back bends. We got to get that kind of ring out, but do it gently. Wring out the strain in your back from the back bends. So it's not, you're not like taking your dish rag and squeezing it really hard to get all the water fast. You're slowing down. You're doing it in the more effective ways to like to slowly wring the rag so you get as much water out of it as you can because you use slower time to turn, right? And then come on back to center and go the other way. I must have freaked people out. I'm losing a lot of people at the end here. All right. And then twist the other way. And then come on back to center. And ground. Grounding changes your relationship to time for your mind. It actually slows it down, like the base of a building. You want to receive Shavasana and support in slowed down time. Your mind has to quiet so it receives more of the eternity, right? And then let your chair hold you up. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Make room for your skin. Make room for the quiet energy in the center of your joints. Allow for the hum. Down time by stopping your expectations or at least slowing down. Feel your breath. Try not to change it. Then start to change it. Change helps your mind know that you have location in time. Gradually increase the inhalation. Lengthen the exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. Close them again. If you weren't quite ready, retouch the quiet part, the less stimulated part. Bring that part back with you when you open your eyes. One of the things that is, whatever time is or is not, or whatever, it's probably doesn't exist without movement, all this stuff, right? It is very interesting that we can only say that it's maybe what a clock measures, that the mind struggles to know, to live in eternity or expansive time. So it needs a relationship, it needs a clock, it needs a body, it needs some sort of reference point in order to mark, right, that something immense is passing, right? And that's how minds work. So maybe samadhi, I have no idea, but probably a really deep meditative state, there probably isn't a sensation of time because there's no relationship. But you get to practice it, having the slower time and the faster time in how you move in poses, right? You get in a yoga pose, it looks like you're just doing a yoga pose, but you're practicing transcendence, right? So all this, I blame this weird class that I think was probably out there a little too far, was because of the Goblin of Glee and the sun being in, the earth being in a same position to the sun. And for those of you that stay on, I'm gonna read a little part out of my book that's kind of about this. In the last few weeks I've been teaching, it's kind of like about the fact that you get to practice existential issues without having to focus on them. Don't practice your yoga poses in all these different planes of time very often. It's going to freak you out. It's going to be overwhelming. That's the beauty of yoga. You don't have to be aware of everything. You just need to practice. Not the awareness of all the planes. It happens already. It's whether you can appreciate it. All right, everybody. Namaste. The spirit in me bows to the spirit in you.